What is up, my dudes? Cheap bastard talking to you. And for today I have prepared a rather odd video for you guys, cause you don't see the CPU in gaming rigs. It is often found in pre-built office PCs, so if you got your hands on one, let's see if you can salvage this CPU and use it in your gaming system. This i5-6500T has 4 cores, 4 threads, a base clock of 2.5 GHz and a turbo up to 3.1, although it stays on 2.8 when using all cores, 6 MB of cache and a mind-blowing TDP of just 35 watts. My super dank gaming rig contains 8 GB of dual-channel DDR4 RAM, 1TB SSD and Sapphire RX 580 8GB. Let's just jump straight into testing now. Continuing my movie car tradition on GTA 5, I have prepared some 007 action this time. On ultra settings 1080p with advanced shadows off, I got an average of 68.6, a minimum of 54.4 and the maximum of 87.7 FPS. Moving on to Overwatch, on ultra settings 1080p, my RX 580 was screaming for help and gave me an average of 90.3, a minimum of 79.7 and the maximum of 98.6 FPS, while the CPU was chilling in Bikini Bottoms Beach with my man SpongeBob. Rocket League also showed a decent result. On 1080p high performance settings I got an average of 168, a minimum of 122.5 and the maximum of 223 FPS. Rush B on Dust 2 Simulator also went quite well. On 1080p ultra settings I got an average of 148.9, a minimum of 97.5 and the maximum of 256 FPS. On 1080p low settings I got an average of 194.2, a minimum of 113.2 and the maximum of 291.9 FPS. Just Cause 3 performance was great, but my wingsuit skills weren't. On 1080p high settings I got an average of 68.4, a minimum of 44.9 and the maximum of 93.2 FPS. Turns out I don't even know how to drive After All 2.0.exe, also known as Dirt Rally 2.0. On high settings 1080p gave me an average of 112.3, a minimum of 44.8 and the maximum of 168.5 FPS. Do note that on rally tracks with more stuff going on, you will get slightly less FPS. Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville on 1080p high settings gave me an average of 61.9, a minimum of 29.5 and the maximum of 82.6 FPS. After pressing every single key on the keyboard to find out how to detach myself from a rope on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I got an average of 74.7, a minimum of 66.9 and the maximum of 89.1 FPS. On 1080p high settings of course. Red Dead Redemption 2 gameplay was also very interesting and entertaining.
Yeah, okay boy. Okay boy.
On 1080p medium settings my RX 580 was being pushed to its limit to give me an average of 62.8, a minimum of 54.5 and the maximum of 75.4 FPS. Assetto Corsa was easy to run as always, so I kept 1440p high settings to get an average of 134.2, a minimum of 103.6 and the maximum of 143.5 FPS. And the last game tested in this video is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. On ultra settings 1080p I got an average of 152.4, a minimum of 96.9.
Nice.
And a maximum of 214 FPS. So, to answer the question, should you consider i5-6500T for gaming? My answer is heck yeah, you should consider it. It's pretty good. Subscribe for future goodness and I hope to see you in my next video. Stay cheap my dudes. Cheap bastard out.